Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development, and a special episode of that because it's a footnote with George from Minimap to discuss the Korean market. But there's also a little announcement that I want to make for this episode. You may have noticed that last week on the 8th of April, an episode did not go live, like a regular Indie Diary did not go live. Not many of you will know that the original content schedule for the podcast, when I founded it in January 2023, was of 2 episodes per month, or 1 episode every other week. And due to some personal stuff and the fact that I've also launched the YouTube channel at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to find a balance, and I have decided that, unfortunately, I'm going to fall back on that kind of production schedule. It's a bit healthier for me. It allows me to dedicate more time to the show in a lot of different ways. And so from now on, save for some exceptions, the show will move back to having 1 episode every other week instead of every week. This hopefully will also help me dedicate more time to the YouTube channel and a lot of other things, and also find a better balance with my life, with my personal life in general. And I know you guys are a super wholesome and supportive community, so I know you will understand that this cadence, this change in cadence will not mean a decrease in quality. I will always commit everything I can to each episode of the show, and I will simply focus my efforts on other parts of the project, including the YouTube channel, and also to finding a better balance in my personal life right now, because this year has been interesting, to say the least. But of course, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without my amazing Patreons, and so I want to shout out to them because they've been super supportive in this decision of mine, and it's just amazing to have you guys supporting the show. So I want to shout out especially to Zagini, who was an incredible support through this time, and flagged that some episodes weren't really at the top of their quality because of some exporting issues that I then found out to be true. So thank you, Z, for always supporting the show. But also I want to shout out to Feinoco, Fishbump Dev, and Peleg. You guys are incredible, and what you do inspires me every single day, and I'm very, very grateful to have you as supporters of the show. So thank you so much for being my patrons. And listeners, if you too want to support the show in any way, please make sure to head over to patreon.com/theindiediaries, where you can find all my tiers and benefits, which include, of course, access to episodes in advance, exclusive content, video episodes on YouTube, and a lot more. And these tiers start from as little as £1.25 per month. And already that makes a huge difference for the show. So make sure to go to patreon.com/theindiediaries and check out my page. But I've spoken too much already, so I'm going to leave you to this beautiful, beautiful footnote with George from Minimap. Just a note, George's microphone was a little bit too high on gain. I tried to compress it, but please forgive me if it feels a bit wonky sometimes. Hello everybody and welcome to this very special episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, a footnote in the bonus series of episodes. And this is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, narrative designer, and senior content manager in social media. Today with me is a very special guest from a platform called Minimap, and his name is George. So George, before I start rambling on about Minimap and such, tell the listeners a bit about yourself, and Minimap as a platform, if you don't mind.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is George. George is actually not my real name, but I chose that name when I started studying in the States. I'm Korean. I went to the States when I was 16. I studied there about 10 years, and then I graduated high school and college, and then came back to Korea. This actually is my first gaming-related job. Because before I was freelancing in a lot of different areas. I mainly did a lot of translating work, but gaming also has been one of my main passions that I had since I was a childhood. And I also translated in the League of Legends Championship Korea for about 3-4 seasons. I was also a translator for a Korean professional basketball team, which also have a very passion about. And also, I taught a lot of English to Korean students. And then I actually recently joined Minimap about 3 months ago. I'm just gonna give you guys a short description of Minimap. We have so many features on Minimap, but I don't think I have enough time to explain every single detail. So I'm just gonna go over with three major things that we would like to kind of point out. Minimap, players or gamers can sync different accounts in one platform. Like we provide Steam, Nintendo, Xbox, PS game accounts that you can sync into one account where they show you achievements, playtime, and all that good stuff, and you can sort them in a way that you want to, whatever you want to be. So you can sync that in one platform. That's really a very good, strong point about Minimap. And the second one is the reviews. Obviously, there are a lot of people leaving good game reviews and ratings on our Minimap. We actually recently reached 3 million gaming reviews marks recently. So that was a big milestone for us. And you can share your game review and ratings, or you can obviously read others' game reviews. And then Minimap recommends you games based on the game reviews that you leave. So that's another good thing about using Minimap. And lastly, we have our own community service or feature where you can actually communicate with other gamers. You can leave a lot of information. You can leave postings. You can kind of think of it as like Facebook, but only for gamers, where you can leave game journals, game news information, or a free topic, game review, and all that good stuff. And then you can read them, communicate through feeds, and leave replies and stuff. And then you can find gaming buddies and get some suggestions or reviews on some certain games, or help or tips and all that. So those are the three big things. And I think I actually read in one of your blogs that there's a service called We the Player.
We the Player, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar, plus we have a lot of other features. So or some people call us like Letterboxd for games.
Yeah, that's something that I've been, I use Letterboxd a lot. It's great. I've been looking for something like that for games myself. That's why I wrote for We the Players for a short while. Yeah,
so it's basically that, plus you can sync your gaming accounts. And this is, I'm really excited to be on the team. And this is actually my first full-time job, basically. So I'm also kind of trying to get, adapted to that new kind of lifestyle as well at the same time. So that's about it for me. Yeah.
Right, perfect. And what I didn't mention in my intro was the kind of topic that we're going to talk about today, which is the Korean market in games, which I thought was something really interesting that you brought up and that we can definitely discuss together. Obviously, you will know a lot about it, and I'm sure some listeners wanting to market their games in Korea will find it interesting too. But before we go there, I like to open these episodes with a little icebreaker, be it a bonus episode or not. So if you could be any game's character for a day, who would you be and why?
I actually listened to a couple of your episodes and listened to this question. I gave it a thought a little bit, but I think whichever game or whichever character it is, if it is a character that can have a full day of relaxing or getting full sleep and no one else cares, because as a father of a young daughter, I'm almost exhausted every single day. Work and then come back to family, take care of the daughter. That's a repetition of all day. So I just want to have full 1 day of relaxing plus nap and just chilling.
Okay. Well, I think that sounds like a great answer. Okay, perfect. Right. Well, I guess now if we can get into the main topic of the show, which is just talking a little bit about the Korean market. So I expect my listeners will not know a whole lot about the current state of the gaming market in Korea. So do you want to explain a little bit what it looks like? Just feel free to go, to go freely and talk freely, and then I will jump in with questions here and there.
Okay. So as of right now, there are many Korean gaming companies, but right before this era, there were called the big three N's. The three N's were NCSoft, Nexon, and Netmarble. Those were the three big companies, and they had quite good games from my childhood, and I liked a couple of the games, and I really played a lot. But The main problem with the Korean market right now is that the game that was produced by NCSoft, which is called Lineage, I don't know if you guys are all familiar with that game, but that kind of brought, stirred up the entire Korean market because with that game being able to make a lot of profits out of that one game, because they had a lot of the gacha system where people had to pay for, like getting random or really good unique items or, sort of things. So after that one game made like crazy amount of profit to the entire company, all the other game companies started like kind of copying that concept and making very, very similar like system of the game, like with like just different graphics. So after that, in Korea we call it the lineage-like games, and most of the games are now published in or released in mobile versions, because in Korea mobile games are way bigger than the video console games or PC games. It's very different from markets, especially in the US or Europe or any other markets, because I know there are more people play video console games than mobile games. But in Korea, like not many people even own consoles at all. They just like play mobile games on their way to work, or just when they're relaxing at home, they just like lay down and like play mobile game all day. And
you mentioned this during our first chat, actually, that PC and mobile gaming are more prevalent in Korea than other platforms. But do you know why? Is there probably a reason, any cultural factors that may influence this trend?
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but this is just my opinion. In Korea, we just want things to happen very quickly. Like, we just have a very fast changing and quick, paced everything. So we just want to play the game like quick games and just be over with. And we also have very competitive gaming like attitude of the gamers, because we just can't lose. Like if we lose, it's just like it just can't happen. I guess it's just the whole country's tradition, or I don't know, just like the attitude towards everything, like, especially in like education, like you just want to go to the best college in Korea, you have to be, get better grades, whatever. And I think as a whole, the society kind of made that atmosphere of the gaming as well. So we just can't lose, plus we just want things to be done like quickly, or that's why I think a lot of people just don't want to, sit down and take that time to actually turn on the console and, take time to play games. So usually in Korea, many people play multiplayer games rather than the single player games.
Yeah, and this brings me to actually the next point, which is during our first chat, you also mentioned that like there's a lack of diversity in the kind of games that are available in Korea. Why do you think this might be the case? Is it because of the big three N's that you mentioned at the beginning, maybe?
Yeah, I think that kind of does it, because, obviously the three big N's, they did a lot of, they spent a lot of money on marketing, obviously, and those are the types of games that they were actually publishing. So people just had to play those games, or else they actually have to, take their own time to try to find some real good other games, and they just don't want to do it. And when other people start playing that game, they just have to play it together and then beat them. Obviously, that's why like games like League of Legends or StarCraft. I don't know if you're like familiar with the StarCraft. Korean, the gaming culture, the esports happened, but like, so we just tend to play like one specific, not one, but like, they're like just very restricted amount of pool that you can choose from, and then you just have to play that game and beat your friends or, I don't know, opponents and whatever. That kind of set up the mood for the entire Korean game company.
And of course, I suppose this brings a lot of consequences, and probably some negative consequences onto not only the gamers, but also the developers themselves. Because then, like, you're kind of restricted in the kind of things that will have success, and like there isn't a lot of diversity in the market, so you're kind of you're limited in what you can do. What do you think are some potential consequences of this, like in terms of, especially in the gaming on the gamer base? but also developers themselves. Is there something else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think also in Korea, I think not many people actually are familiar with, not familiar, but like they use Steam games. They don't like, they're not, I think the reason actually I didn't mention was that people don't want to pay for playing the game. They just like are not used to paying like $70, $80 for like a single game. They rather have a game that is free to play, but you can actually pay like, within like microtransactions or, gachas, and where you can choose to pay, but you don't have to pay. So like, that's why I guess for game developers, especially for indie game developers, they can't afford to have that kind of system in their games, because usually the indie games developers are a very small group of people who have very limited amount of resources. And that's why they just don't want to make games that have microtransactions. They obviously can't do that. They just usually have to, they usually upload their games to Steam and try to sell it for, I don't know how much money they have to buy the games. But like, that's why in Korea there's so like limited, I think, audience of the indie game players. So there's very limited choice that the indie game devs can do, and there are not many supports, I guess. But I think that is changing a little bit, I think. Okay. Luckily.
Yeah, that's and actually this is follows. I mean, it leads me to the next one really well too. But before I get there, I mean, I guess you mentioned that. You mentioned that the Korean market has a lot of PC and mobile gaming, but as you mentioned, it's just mostly free to play. So like, even on PC itself, although Steam is huge worldwide, apparently like the Korean players don't really use it, don't really care about using it unless they're playing free to play games, which is really interesting. I don't think a lot of people knew that. So yeah, I guess developers, if you want to develop a game and sell it in Korea, make it free to play with microtransactions at this point. But yeah, so onto the topic of the big three Ns, which I find super interesting because, of course, we know there are a lot of big AAA publishers out there in the West too, and those are super successful and they tend to dominate the market in terms of marketing and whatnot. But how do you think, in your case, the big three Ns, how did they become so successful in the first place, do you think?
I think they're just the ones that started first.
Right.
I guess.
Makes sense.
Because as I mentioned, NCSoft made Lineage. Lineage was also one of the first like online player games in Korea. Not the first, but like it was it was like out in 1990s of somewhere. And I actually enjoyed playing it when I was in middle school before I went to study in the States. And back in the days, that game was really, really fun. Like a lot of people kind of reminisce in that era when Lineage used to be really good, because back then it was like really you're going into an adventure with your character and whatnot. And also Nexon had a game called The Kingdom of the Winds. I don't know if
never
you
heard
guys,
of that, but
yeah, if you guys have heard of it. But it was the first multi-player game in Korea, like online game in Korea, that was released in 1996. I played that game for so long, like until college. I actually played it. Right. But those, I think, after they became successful in their, when they started and initiated this online gaming era, they kind of added up on top of that. So whatever they did afterwards was kind of an innovation to the whole gaming, I guess, market and industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, I haven't played a lot of free-to-play or multiplayer games in my lifetime, so it could be that someone listening might know that game that you mentioned, especially if it was so important for the Korean market. But I see exactly, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, they were the first to come and they had a successful business model, and so now they've grown beyond measure, and of course they're kind of towering above the whole market. But you also mentioned during our first chat that you think the bubble is starting to burst, because maybe there could be chances for smaller developers to now shine. And why is that, you think?
People just got sick and tired of that because, especially for NCSoft, the Lineage-like games, they they had released Lineage 1, and then after that they released Lineage 2, Lineage M, Lineage W, Lineage whatever.
Getting too much.
The list goes on. And like people started to realize like they're crazy people who would spend like millions of dollars into this one game to become like number one ranked in the whole server or whatever. But that's why I think at one point that one game brought about like in the billions of dollars of sales for that one game. So that's why NCSoft started to making its own like copies and all that. But like as you mentioned, the bubble actually bursted already because the stock price of NCSoft went to like 1 million Korean won. That's about $1,000, roughly around $1,000 per share. But now it fell to like $200. It fell like 1/5 of the company value dropped. Crazy amounts. Because people started to realize like I don't want to be spending this amount of money for nothing. And then those who stuck around, who has been sticking around are like old people, like 40s, 50s, and 60s, even 60s. And then the young people do not want to pay that. They can't catch up with those people who already spent like millions of dollars.
Yeah, of course.
So they don't want to play this kind of game in the first place. And they do realize that this is going to be another Lineage. Because they actually released a game called Trickster M. And Trickster was like a very old game that they had back in the day, and then they renovated and then released it in the mobile version. And then a lot of people wanted to play that game because they brought their childhood memories and stuff. But it was basically Lineage with Trickster graphic. You know what I mean? Like it was just the basic thing. Yeah. And then people realized like, okay, NCSoft we should just stop playing these games, because the gaming industry is going to get worse and worse if we just keep feeding money to these big companies. And then
And I totally see why. And also, I think there's this generational divide between, the big executives at the head of these big studios and then the people who may be playing the games in the first place. Because, gamers come from all backgrounds and have all sorts of ages. But at the same time, we know that there are new gamers coming into the market every day, every year. And usually they tend to be quite young. Until then, maybe they bring their passion up until their later years. I think I will, for example, but not everybody does that. And as you're in your 40s with the family and other responsibilities, maybe you start falling out of gaming altogether. And so these executives may be out of touch with the people that are actually buying the games. And so they do things that they think are profitable and they have quality, but I don't think it's sustainable in the long run. And as you say, the bubble is starting to burst. It's burst already for NCSoft, and we'll see what happens. But on that topic, actually, do you think there could be other monetization models that could be more sustainable or beneficial for the Korean market?
Oh, sorry for
No, you're going.
Yeah, so I was actually going to mention that because nowadays the gaming companies are shifting from mobile games towards console games. I think we're in the era where they started to shift towards mobile or console games because Nexon recently released Dave the Diver was released by Nexon. You know that game? Dave the Diver, and then Lies of P was a Korean game as well. That was released by NeoWiz, a big Korean game company.
They were both quite successful, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then Stellar Blade is coming out in a few weeks. That's also a Korean company.
That's nice.
The gaming companies started to try out new things because they realized they cannot sustain these business models forever. They've been quite successful until now, but then they saw what happened to NCSoft especially. And I know like NCSoft is also trying to, change entirely, like restructure the whole company. I heard that like in the last shareholders meeting, the CEO came out and said like, we're going to restructure, we won't be making all these Lineage-like games. But they have thrown in Liberty which is going to be released pretty soon, and I heard that's basically like another Lineage, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to NCSoft because like most of the Korean gamers have sort of a hatred towards NCSoft. They don't like NCSoft games at all. Like they're like most hated gaming company.
It's like it's like, I don't know, a lot of gamers in the West who don't really like EA or Ubisoft games will look like the same. I mean, a lot of gamers do love him. I do play a lot of those games, but yeah, I can see the similarities between the different games, so I can see what people are on about.
Yeah, exactly. So they're shifting. I think they're slowly shifting, though. They're not. The entire gaming company is not just like suddenly making console games, but like they're slowly shifting towards the console video games. I think it is a very good sign because in Korea we want to have obviously play a lot of games. We're game lovers. Korea is known for game loving. So we just want to have more variety of games, and if the games are really good, they're willing to pay $70. It doesn't really matter how much the money is, because I think Lies of P was in like $10 game. It was much more than that, but people bought those games and started playing it. And I know Dragon's Dogma 2 was also a little bit successful, and the Final Fantasy series is pretty successful in Korea as well. There's just like limited amount of people playing it, but people will start playing it because they realize they don't want to, even if they play free to play game, they're not actually free to play. You just have to pay money to win, basically. So yeah, I think it's a good sign for the Korean.
Yeah, it definitely is a good sign, to be fair, and I think it's a very encouraging outlook for the gaming market, not just in Korea, but the fact that more games might come out of Korea, then even the West will benefit, because we will have a lot more diversity in games, a lot more experimental stuff. Like Lies of P really worked, and Dave the Diver was pretty successful. So yeah, I've got good high hopes for that. But yeah, so with that in mind, what do you think is the future of the Korean gaming market? Like, say in 3 years, for example, what do you think is going to happen?
I think in 3 years, people there are obviously going to be more big video console games, because I heard the company behind Shift-Up Corporation, who made Stellar Blade. I think the director or the CEO said they're already making another video console game. They're working on it, and I'm pretty sure Nexon will not just make another mobile game and just hope that it's going to work again. They're obviously going to try out a lot of various, other things, and I hope NCSoft does something actually a real game, I guess, that's not, has the same business model that they had in the previous years. And so I think it's going to be a variety of diversity is going to be added. There are going to be a lot more games added. I don't hope, but League of Legends has been the number one game in Korea for I don't know how many years. It's been so many years that League of Legends is just number one. But I just hope there are some other games that can take over that realm. And Overwatch had that potential until they kind of also bursted. They just I don't know. They kind of gave up on Overwatch, but I don't know. Those times were fun because back in the day, League of Legends had. In Korea, they're PC room, the PC cafe.
The internet cafe.
The culture is very crazy, and they usually rank the games based on how many, what percentage of the people play on PC rooms, and then League of Legends has been number one for I don't know how many weeks. But then when Overwatch came out, it took over that number one spot, and people just went crazy, oh my gosh, this is gonna be, taking down the throne, and back in the day, we just didn't just play League. We could play, do you want to play League or Overwatch? We had, other choices where we can play other games, That kind of thing was just very interesting and fun back in the day. So I hope that kind of thing happens, We just don't, sit down and play. Let's just play League again and just... Yeah, because, as someone who loves games in a lot of different ways, and the ways in which games can speak to you, I think... it's great to see that there might be more people enjoying games the way I do, for example, and all those different experiences. I'm looking right now at a poster of Outer Wilds, because it's a game that left such a big mark on me. But I also love Nier Automata and all those games. If I'd only played one game for the rest of my life, I would have never discovered them, and I would have never discovered the kind of impact they could have on me. And I think this kind of impact is something that people deeply need, and they will deeply they won't want to abandon once they discover it. So yeah, let's hope that it does happen and it does go the way you say. Yeah, exactly. So I think games are just like not just for entertainment. I think it just affects your life in so many different ways. I think, and you know, when you just dive deep into a story of a game, the narrative of a game, it could actually completely change your life and viewpoint in many things. It's, I guess, basically similar to movies, but I think it's got more of a potential because when you play a game, you actually become that character. Yeah,
and movies are passive; they're a passive form of entertainment. But in games, you are that character; you live that story, so it has a huge impact on you. So I totally agree.
Exactly. That's why a lot of people cried about so many different games. Yeah, and got angry when the
I still remember crying over To the Moon. I mean, To the Moon was just amazing to me. I loved it.
I heard that a lot of good things about that game too. I haven't played it yet, but
it's just about 4 to 5 hours. It's definitely worth it. It's got a beautiful story, and if you're the romantic type, you're gonna love it. So yeah. But yeah, so well, I guess I have one last question for you before we wrap things up.
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
And it's a bit of an ambitious question for you, but I'm curious to know what you would say. What role do you think platforms like Minimap can play in the future of the Korean gaming market? What would you like Minimap's role to be?
So, anyways, in about 3 years, what we can play is we mainly support indie game devs, especially in the global servers, because we have 2 different servers. We have the Korean server and the global server. Especially in the global server, we have been supporting a lot of indie game devs because I know they have very limited amount of resources, especially in terms of financial resource and time resource, and then they really struggle to market their game and promote their games. So we usually help them out, and we want to become a platform where a lot of indie game devs can communicate directly with the potential players. Because we also have our own store where we sell indie games. As of now, a global server only has indie games, but in Korean server we sell big name games like 505 games and all that. But so we would like to be a platform where game devs can directly communicate with the game players, and then have a very friendly community where they can give feedbacks or give some suggestions. I know they do that in Discord or in Reddit pages, but I think they're very limited in terms of features, and they have some limitations. So I think our platform can provide that kind of function and take that role, not just for indie games, but overall game devs and all.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, and that's exactly what I thought you were going to say, because it's a platform for discoverability, so hopefully it can help play a role in which more people discover games if it becomes big enough and becomes known enough around the world. So yeah, that's a really good answer. Well, yeah, George, I think this is it for this episode. It's been just a lovely chat. I loved chatting about the Korean market. It's such a fascinating industry, the one that you have over there, and I think it's super interesting for people to know about, especially those who may want to market a game in Korea, make it appeal to the Korean market, which I think someone will want to do who will listen to this episode. So as some parting words, where can other people find you, and if they do, what is the best way to support you and or Minimap?
As a global community manager, I'm always on Minimap or on Discord channel of Minimap Discord channel, and you can just directly message me or leave a comment on Minimap or send me an email or whatever. I'm really happy to discover. I really enjoyed from my 3 months past. Past 3 months of the experience working for Minimap, I really enjoyed discovering new games, talking to new indie devs, especially indie devs, and then talking to new gamers overall. So I just really enjoy talking to them because I just love games. I mean, I don't know. I just love games. No,
that's great.
That's how I found you, and started talking, and then I thought it was an interesting podcast idea to have this conversation, and I read, and I listened to all of your podcasts, and I thought it was a really good way to promote games and all that. So it's just an enjoyable ride, and I think if you're gonna join Minimap, because the Minimap is growing slowly, but especially in the global market. So I think if you want to, find Game Buddy or get some information on games, you should probably join Minimap and check out what it's all about. I'm always there, so.
Perfect. Yeah. And I can tell that your passion for games and just connecting people through games shines through because of everything that we talked about and because of the way we discussed all of these things and how you approached me even. So thank you for the kind words in the podcast, and thank you for being such a lovely guest. It's been lovely speaking to you. It's been a lovely chat. And best of luck with Minimap, I suppose.
Oh, thank you. I hope we, collaborate in some way or, work together in the future. And we're always, open, especially for indie devs. So feel free to just contact me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, friends, and that's a wrap on another amazing footnote of the Indie Diaries podcast. And as I always say, it's not amazing because of me, it's amazing because of the amazing people that I bring onto the show. Thank you, George, for being a beautiful guest. I do hope that we get to do some more stuff in the future, also because of the things that I talked to you about. If I do come to Korea at one point, I suppose I will have someone to to speak to. But yeah, listeners, I spoke too much during the intro, so I'm going to keep this brief. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a rating, 5 stars. Check out my links on theindiediaries.com. It's as usual the one place where you can find everything that has to do with the show. And just feel free to get in touch because I'm always interested in hearing news stories from the indie game development community, and I'm always interested in hearing feedback from you. Of course, I also have a Discord server, and of course I've got the Patreon page. So again, make sure to check out all my links on theindiediaries.com so that you can connect with me and just keep following the show through thick and thin. But other than that, I guess I'll speak to you next time.